Welcome to yet another day in the life of a military wife, and I can be fairly confident that most everyone listening to this has seen some sort of military drama or some military movie or TV show or something. And, there are a lot of funny things that are true that are in those, but there are a lot of things that are just not accurate. And because of media, social media, just life in general, there's a lot of myths and misconceptions about military personnel and their families and military life in general. So we're going to debunk some of those myths today and have some fun with it. These are things that I've encountered or other people I know have encountered either in movies and social media, or people have actually said to our faces. Some of them are kind of shocking. And we're going to just address them and share some facts and perspective on what's really going on with us. So, my name is Sam Wolf and I'm your host, and this is Life of a Military Wife. All right, so let's dig right into the first one, and that is that the military loves war. And this is something that, or they're very aggressive or just violent kind of people. I could not believe it. In our first duty station, I was hanging out with people I all thought were friends, and one of them, not all military wives, some were just civilian, normal spouses. And one of them actually said that she's like, oh, I don't want my kids playing with military kids because they're just too violent. Military families are okay with violence. And I'm sitting there going, wait, huh? What? Huh? I personally, I don't think that military kids are more violent or fans of violence than other kids. They're more aware of the realities of war, I think, than most. But I was absolutely shocked by that because we're not a violent family. We don't, I don't let my kids fight. I don't want my kids fighting. I don't let my kids get in fights with other kids. That's just not acceptable. And so I was really shocked by that. But it's not there really is this kind of stereotype that if you're in the military, you're this highly aggressive person. And there are a lot of people who are in the military who are not these aggressive, let's go shoot them up, I want to be at the firing range every day kind of people. There's a lot of support roles in the military. Not everyone carries a gun on a regular basis at all. I mean, everyone needs to know how to use it. They all know how to use them, but most jobs don't carry guns, period. In fact, on post, most places, they don't want you to have guns walking around. There's lots of signs. Most of the buildings on post, you can't go in with a firearm unless you are a military police. So, and these bases, post stations, all of those things, that's just how it is. You need to know how to use a gun, but we don't want everyone walking around with them all the time. And this was kind of just boggled my mind when I first encountered this. But the Daily Beast actually decided to do a survey about this in the early 2000s. And they found that of the people surveyed, civilian elites, so people in positions of influence or political positions or things like that, compared to military officers, that the civilians were more likely to think the use of force was acceptable in a wider range of scenarios. They were okay with people going in for peacekeeping or all this stuff. When the military personnel were surveyed, they were asked these sorts of things, and they're like, no. Basically, what it came down to was but the civilians wanted to send them in, but with all these constraints, so that things wouldn't escalate. And that was where the really big difference was, because the military are like, nah, if you're going to send us in, let us go in, let us do our job, let us get things done, and let's get out of there. Like that's just the military mentality. Let's get in, let's get it done, let's just move on. Don't put a whole bunch of like, you know, rules on us. Just let us accomplish our mission. And the civilians were like, no, let's send them everywhere to do all sorts of stuff, but give them a whole bunch of extra rules too. And that really is kind of a common mentality. There's a really awesome quote that was pointed out when I was reading through this stuff. My President Eisenhower, and I don't know if you know, hopefully y'all do know this, but President Eisenhower was a veteran. He served in the World War II. And he said, "I hate war as only a soldier who has lived it can, only as one who has seen its brutality, its futility, and its stupidity." And that really is not an uncommon sentiment among soldiers and airmen and Marines, and like I've talked to people in all branches, and basically the philosophy is we're here as a deterrent. We're here to make sure that our country is safe, but I don't want to go solve everyone else's problems just because everyone thinks we should. And because when the military is sent in, they're sent in with the very clear knowledge that someone may not come home. And they all want to come home. And so it's not something they take lightly. Another common misconception about the military is that, you know, soldiers get married really young just because they want the benefits and all of that sort of stuff, or that, and they're not really committed to their marriages, that military marriages fall apart all the time, and the divorce rate is super high. And I remember being confronted by this when we first were getting into the military. My husband and I were married prior to him joining the military, which is not uncommon. And I remember someone coming up to me just out of the clear blue who found out and telling me that my marriage was over. I was going to have my husband, he was going to cheat on me all the time, and I was going to end up divorced because he was going to be sleeping around whenever he was deployed, because that's what all soldiers do. And this was someone who was went to church with me, and I'm sitting there going, are you kidding me? Do you know my husband? I was so shocked and appalled that they would think that of my husband. And I come to realize that's not an uncommon opinion that people have, is that there's a whole lot of infidelity and cheating. And I just want to let y'all know that is not reality. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It does. And I'm not saying there aren't strains on military marriages. There are. And I am going to tell you this. Military people do tend to get married a lot younger than their civilian counterparts. They also tend to have more kids than their civilian counterparts. However, and this is something that I think everyone needs to know, that the divorce rate for the military is... And now this was something I really went back and double checked and triple checked, because divorce rates are calculated in a lot of different ways. So I made sure I was using comparable calculations. So divorce rate for the military is 3.1%. Divorce rate for the civilians during the same time period, according to the Census Bureau, was 7.6% on their same measurement scale. Yeah, that is significantly less. So really, divorce is something that does happen. But the thing is, the marriage rates is really where this becomes startling, because the civilian marriage rates during this same time period was 17.6%. However, the marriage rates in the military are somewhere near 30 to 50%. Most people in the military do end up getting married and do end up having dependents. Whereas a lot of people in the civilian side and their same counterparts will live together or have kids and not get married. But with the military, there's a reason why. If you're dating someone, if you're in a committed relationship with someone, and then all of a sudden they're getting transferred to another duty station, they're being forcibly moved by their job, you have to make a really quick assessment about your relationship. You have to decide, okay, am I moving with them? Am I going to commit to that level, or are we breaking up? And if you're going to move cross country and all over the world with this person, it just makes sense to be married because it's just easier with all of the red tape governmentally. And B, there are the fact that you know, at that point, just get married. There's so many benefits to being married in general with joint taxes and all of that other stuff. The other thing is when you're actually married, you have more legal rights. For example, if your service member dies and you're not married, there's very little benefits for you. And so it gets to the point in a marriage or a relationship with a service member when it's like, okay, well, you're going away. Are we breaking up or are we getting married? That really is just why. And so, they get married younger. They have more kids. But also they do stay married. And part of the reason why I personally feel like there is so much success with military marriages, even though they're very hard, is because there is a support system. The military community does really rally around its members. Schools are becoming more and more aware of the difficulties faced by children who are military families. And there are more support systems being placed for those children. There are a lot of counseling and marriage classes that are free that are available to these military families because they know they're young. And because of those, they tend to succeed. So that's not a thing. Everyone's not cheating and running around. However, we're not doing it for the money. We are not doing it for the money. The civilian sector gets paid significantly more than the military does. I'm going to give you my perspective because I had a parent who was a public school teacher, and we were not a very, we did fine, but we're not rich by any means. And I think public school teachers are underpaid. I'm just going to say that straight up. I think public school teachers are on average, maybe there's places where they're flush, but on average, I don't think they're paid enough, especially in non-union states. I don't think they get paid quite as much as they're worth sometimes. And this is coming from someone who is seeing how much they put in. But that's a complete side tangent. I wanted to give you a comparison. The average school teacher, according to salary.com, gets paid $4,310 a month. The average enlisted soldier, so actually not even average, the max, an enlisted soldier under the rank of E7, which means they've been in for years. They like E7, that takes at least 10 to 12 years to get to that rank. Gets paid at most gets paid $3,207 a month. They are making $1,100, like, more or less than a public school teacher. They are making less than public school teachers. On top of them making less than public school teachers, they are gone from their family. They are required to buy highly expensive uniforms very frequently. So I've had other people throw back, well, you get a clothing allowance. Our clothing allowance is like $300 or something like that. It's ridiculously small considering the military has changed their uniforms several times since my husband has joined. And we have had to change out and buy all new uniforms for him. We have dropped somewhere near $1,200, not 1,200. That's 1,200. Maybe I said it right. Anyway, we've dropped somewhere near $1,200 in the last 5 years on uniforms alone. That's quite a bit of money to be spending on And actually, I think I'm probably underestimating it. I think it's probably closer to 2,000 because of deployments and everything like that. Because they have to have different gear for everything. They have to wear something completely different to exercise, and something completely different when they go to the office, and something completely different for special occasions. And now they're trying to add in a fourth type of uniform, which is like a professional business office uniform. And so, like, my husband changes his clothes 3 times a day. He changes clothes more than I do. The amount of laundry is ridiculous. Let's just put it that way. But that factors in to our costs. That factors into everything. And we don't choose where we live. So, and our housing allowance has dropped since we got in. It used to be 100% of the local average, and now I think it's 75% of the local average. We get less money to live where we live than we used to. So we're not doing this to get rich. We're not going to get rich. And in case you're thinking, oh, but warrant officers or officers, they get paid more. Most of these young families, officers, let's just go for officers. 01 to 04. So that's, most officers. Most, like, when you get up to the really high ranks, there's a lot less of them. So, but a lot of officers, an 04 gets paid. And this is an officer who's gone through officer candidate school, or they've been this or that or the other thing prior, or they went through an academy, the Naval Academy or Air Force Academy, whatever. So they've already done like 4 years of military college and all of that, or they did OCS. Their pay, just starting pay, is still less than a public school teacher. They are getting paid $3,309 a month after 4 years of college at a military university or military academy. Sorry, I misread that one. No, sorry, $3,395. An 04, so someone who's been in for quite a while, they've done quite a bit, they've probably deployed. They're only getting paid $5,135 a month. So, yeah. We're not doing this to get rich. Even the officers are not getting rich off of this. I mean, yeah, when you look at the colonels and the generals and the admirals and the super high up, yeah, they're making pretty good money, but they've been in for 20 plus years. Most people, that's understandable. And there's also very few of them. So we're not doing this for the money. The next one is that you go to war and then you come home and then you're done and you've done your time. And I think that misconception comes from a lot of the war movies and war dramas that are applicable to things like the Vietnam War, World War I, World War II, things where people got drafted and they did their time in the military and then they came home and they had done their time, they were good. That's not how it works anymore. The draft is not a thing right now. So people who are in the military are in the military. It's not a one and done. Most people are deployed over and over again. And this was something that was a shock to me because I really did not fully comprehend this before we became a military family. But it was called a deployment rotation. I was just like, say what? Yeah, there's a rotation to deployments. So a unit will be deployed for like a year, and then they'll be home for a year and a half, and then they'll be deployed again for a year. Yeah, that's not uncommon. So your husband in one duty station could be gone for 2 of the 3 years that you're at a duty station. That's not uncommon. I have friends or family members who've deployed 4, 5, 6 times. It's not a one and done thing. This is not okay, you did your deployment, you're good. They're gone a lot. Then on top of deployments, you've got TDYs, training, or different schools or things they have to go do, field training where, they might only be 30, 40 minutes away practicing, but they're not coming home at night. Then there's hardship tours, which I've talked about briefly, to like Korea or Egypt or... Oh, I know there's a few more. But anyway, those are the common ones, or at least the ones I'm more familiar with. I think there's one up in Iceland. Yeah, maybe there's one in Iceland. I think there's one in Iceland. Anyway, there's hardship tours, and those are year-long assignments that are not to a war zone that your family isn't allowed to come with you. And now with Korea, it's a hardship tour for most enlisted. Officers can very frequently bring their families with them, but if you bring your family with you, and this goes for enlisted too, then you have to stay for 3 years. But then there's areas like Egypt where your family's not coming at all, period, just because of the situation. And there's times where they won't let families go to Korea for the current stuff. Yeah. So it's not just deployments, it's hardship tours, it's these trainings, they're gone so much. Like I said, my husband has missed almost the majority of our youngest child's birthdays. He's missed quite a few of my birthdays. He's missed a lot of our anniversaries. He's missed last Thanksgiving. He's going to miss this Thanksgiving. Was it last Thanksgiving? No, he didn't miss last Thanksgiving. But he's missed numerous Thanksgivings, Christmases. And this one kind of piggybacks into they don't just come home and they're home. They're always coming and going and coming and going, and that really is stressful for everyone, and they miss a lot. So the other myth that we run into is that you get all this vacation time. And yes, in theory, the military is given, or allotted, I should say, tons, not tons, but like a month, a year, plus special leave based on different stuff, and you get occasional 4-day weekends and things like that. We're given so much vacation time, except for when they take it away from you or don't let you use it. See, what most people don't realize, and I didn't realize, is, oh yes, you are allotted a month or so. However, we have to ask permission to use it, and it's frequently denied. Leave is denied so often for lots of different reasons. And so, yeah, you may have it, but you can't use it. And that's not uncommon. There are quite a few people who, by the time they go to get out of the military, they have saved up 4 to 5 to 6 months of leave because they've not been able to use it. And yeah, so that's not an uncommon thing. People think we just, lots of vacations and time off. No, it really doesn't happen. And then there's, on top of all that, there's 24-hour ops. There's very frequently where they're working 24/7, even when they're home. And when they're deployed, they're definitely working 24/7. Someone is always working. Someone's always there because that's just how it's got to be. And when they're not actually at the office, actually doing their job or sleeping, they're on call. Even when they're sleeping, they're on call. If something happens, they need to be able to throw their uniform on and get to where they need to be within an hour or two at the most. So yeah, our lives are not our own. Okay, that is enough for Ranty McRant. I feel like that was really a lot. I want to cover some things that are true, some facts, and I've covered a few of them already. Again, most military spouses are under the age of 35. And over 2 million American children have had a parent deploy at least once. Most have had a parent deploy multiple times and have been gone for many different things. And I've covered some of these things before with the month of the military child, but it's just, military families move 10 times more often than civilian families. Now, you're probably hearing all this stuff and you're like, why do you do this? And this is really where I want to go with this whole ness. There are a lot of misconceptions about military life because of movies and games and whatnot. But there's a lot of really wonderful things about military life. There's a reason why we do this. There's a reason why we get paid less and don't have our husbands around. And I want to share with you what several military spouses shared with me. I put this out on a discussion group that I'm in, as well as on the page, and I got some pretty good responses. And I'm going to start with one from a listener. Her name is Joycelyn, and she said, "My husband wanted to be part of something bigger than himself. Because doing something that you love isn't enough, he wanted to do something that helped our community and the world to be better. Through his years of service in the military, he has been able to mentor those around him and around him and under him, not just with work difficulties, but with life challenges and interpersonal communication that he has learned through his experience. I have also felt led by our faith to stay in the military. Every PCS or move, we can see that we have been placed there for why they've been placed there afterwards. So this life, our sacrifices while being in the military has been a learning and spiritual growth experience for us." And that's not an uncommon feeling. There's another one that I really loved, and this was from Tiara. And we make the sacrifice because it reminds us of the freedoms we have. We only have those freedoms because of those before that were willing to fight for these freedoms. Women especially. As a woman especially, I am grateful for those freedoms that American women did not necessarily have years ago, and many women in other countries still don't have. The freedom to speak out against injustice, to vote, and to even become a political leader ourselves. The things about freedom is that if you don't fight for it and exercise it, you lose it. And she goes on to, and I'm going to paraphrase this, and I asked her permission to, but they got in originally because they were looking for help with, her husband was trying to figure out what he wanted to do career-wise, and the military offers a lot of really great chances to explore educational things and try new things and discover jobs that you may not have known existed, while having the security of a paycheck and health insurance. And they now have 2 children. And so once having their 2 children, they decided to get out of a combat MOS because they were hoping that he'd be able to be home more. But with a support MOS, he's actually not home. He's home even less. So it's something that they are accepting and working with. But at the same time, they want their kids to understand that they're supporting, and this is how she ends it, and this is what I really love. We're supporting their father, my husband, in defending those freedoms that we enjoy. And that's why they make that sacrifice. Again, a lot of different responses. But this one, I'm going to modify a few words. But this one comes from Lacey. Because I love him, this was his dream. And since he was in school, and she wants to support him in his dream. But anyway, she goes on to say, but also because I know I can handle it. Deployments are hard. There is no way around that fact. Anyone who says otherwise is lying. But I was raised to be independent, and that independence is incredibly important to me. As hard as those separations are, I know, as well as he, that I am able to hold it together long enough that he can get the job done without worrying about what is going on here. It can be incredibly hard at times, but I know that I will see him on the other end of it, on the other side of the deployments. So often I think about the song American Soldier. It has always been a very powerful one for me, even before becoming a military spouse. But it's true, and I'm going to quote just a few lines. I don't do it for the money. There are bills I can't pay. I don't do it for the glory. I just do it anyway. Providing for our future is my responsibility. And that's really what I have seen it in my husband. I've seen it in the soldiers and airmen and just Marines, people I've known my whole life who do this. They do it because they love freedom and they want others to have that freedom, and they feel like that freedom is important. Their love for our country is why they're willing to make those sacrifices, and that's why we make those sacrifices for our family. We're grateful for the training and the educational help and things that we have that help us as a family so that my husband has the opportunity to defend freedom. So, all right, that is all. This has been a super long episode, but I'm really grateful for all of the people who contributed. I had so many people contribute. I did not actually get to use them all. And so thank you for everyone who did contribute, who was part of the conversation. I love it when I have more material than I can use. Hopefully that clarifies some things if you had some of those misconceptions. If you enjoyed this and would like me to talk about more misconceptions or misunderstandings about military life, please let me know. I am more than willing to revisit this topic. But with that said, I am your host, Sam Wolf, and this is Life of a Military Wife.